What's up, chess crew? Jerry here. So, just this last weekend, I, along with several teammates from my school, competed in the Maryland High School Chess Championships. Um, we did pretty well. We got first place as a team, and I, as an individual, also did pretty well. I got second place individually, behind only Kevin Wang, the legend, the whatever prodigy himself. And yeah, I'm gonna be taking you through some of my games. Well, actually, all of my games. So let's start with game one here. Game one was against someone named Deshaun Wright. Uh, you know that for high rated players like me, we get low rated opponents typically for the earlier rounds. So round one was really not that hard. There's not much to talk about in this game. So I was white, he was black. Uh, E4, E5, knight f3, D6. I don't know about D6. I don't like the Philidors. I prefer like I prefer knight C6. Because D6 is just D6 just blocks this bishop. Like the bishop can't come out anymore, and I don't know. It's just too passive for black, I feel, because as black you're a move behind and you should be moving your pieces out, not your pawns. So this is just too slow. So anyway, bishop c4. Instead of playing d4, which is I guess main line, I decided to play it safe a little, just safer, more positionally because well, lower rated opponents can't play positionally. That's just a fact, right? Yeah. So bishop c4, h6. Now that's another move I don't like. Obviously, it's trying to prevent knight g5, but I mean, I feel like there are better ways of going about this. I mean, h6. It's just moving like another pawn. Like you don't want to move pawns in the opening as black. You want to move your pieces, and that's just another problem of d6. I'm not actually sure if he can stop knight g5 without playing h6. Actually, no. Yes, he can. He can play bishop e7 instead. So instead of h6, he could obviously do bishop e7, and that stops knight g5. Obviously, it's h6 is just not a good move. And plus h6 like, whoops, I did not mean for that to happen. With h6, I mean, since the bishop's gonna well that wasn't supposed to happen either. Anyway, with h6, the bishop is supposed to go to e7. That's the only square for the bishop. So h6 is sort of like a redundant move because h6 is trying to stop the bishop from going to g5, obviously, to pin the knight. But the knight's not going to be pinned because the bishop is going to come to e7 anyway. So h6 it's a waste of a move essentially. Anyway, I castled natural. It's just a natural move. Knight f6. Uh, Finally developing a piece. I mean, that took him long enough. Anyway, rookie one, uh, protecting this pawn. I could play d3, but I want to push d4 instead of d3. So I think rookie one's the more natural way of protecting this pawn. And obviously knight c3 is another alternative, but I wanted to play c3. So yeah, knight c6. I guess that's okay. I mean, there's nothing really other than that he can do. I do h. Okay, my next move is h3, uh, just to prevent bishop g4. And my h3 is obviously better than his h3 because his h3, as we discussed earlier, is redundant. Okay, so b6. Now this would not be the plan I would go for. This bishop is pretty decent along this diagonal. Uh, it's gonna be when it goes to b7, it's gonna be biting on granite because this pawn will probably be supported by a d3 pawn, or I don't know. This pawn will just be supported, and this diagonal is not particularly open. The bishop would do better on the diagonal it's currently on because I don't know. It's just that it might not do better. It might not do too great on this diagonal, but it certainly does better on this diagonal than the long diagonal because there's nothing on the long diagonal. Anyway, I just continue with my plan. c3. He does bishop b7. Yeah, it's too. I mean, his plan is just too innocuous, if you know what I mean. He doesn't have much of a plan essentially. Anyway, okay, bishop b7. Uh, Now I push d4. Now I like d4. It's yeah, just trying to bust open his position. He hasn't castled yet, so I mean d4, ripping open the center before he's castled is a good idea. If he takes, of course, he doesn't have to take. He does knight d7 here, and I don't know. It's not. It seems like a waste of a move. He honestly doesn't have to do that. He can take, but I mean, I obviously have the advantage if he takes. He could also do bishop e7. I like bishop e7 better because I mean takes. You can take with the knight, and then that also opens up his bishop. So obviously I wouldn't take. I might push. He'll move his knight back, but then he can eventually move his knight to d7, giving you a sort of Chigorin type position. The Chigorin being the Roy Lopez Chigorin, but it would be a disadvantaged Chigorin obviously for black, but it's better than what he went for during the game. Yeah, so he did knight d7, which is it's a waste of a move essentially because he's assuming that I'm going to take, and if I take, then this wouldn't be a bad move. But I'm not going to take. I'm going to do knight bd2 to further bolster my center with the plan of also moving it to d2, then f1, then to g3, and that's just a plan. That's just a plan in the Italian or the Roy Lopez, or just positions like this. Okay, queen e7. I think here he might have had the intention of castling queenside. I mean, castling queenside, I think it's the wrong idea, but I mean, given that all of his pieces are on the queenside, I guess it's not too bad. But the problem with castling queenside, in my opinion, is his pawn structure. His pawn structure. These three pawns aren't very good because I can sort of push these two pawns up and kind of break open his pawn structure and get this rook into the game. And even if he pushes a5, I can still I can still just sack pawns to rip open his king side. So yeah, I think castling queenside wouldn't have been very good for him. Anyway, I naturally assumed he was going to castle queenside, so I played queen e2, anticipating him castling queenside, so that I can move my bishop to a6 and trade off this good defensive bishop. Because, well, if he castles queenside, this bishop becomes sort of a defensive piece. So queen e2. Let's see. Now he makes a blunder. f6. That's absolutely incorrect. He probably should have continued with his plan, in which case I would do bishop a6 and later a4 and b4. And bishop a6 also serves the purpose of blocking the a pawn, so it can't come up to a5 to stop my advance. But he doesn't castle queenside in. f6 is a huge mistake because now knight h4, and this square is just too weak. The f7 pawn previously protected g6, but now it doesn't, and he's opening up his king to this like check on this diagonal, which I mean it's extremely dangerous, and it's also opening up this square, which lets me fork his king. Which lets me fork his queen and rook. So he wants to stop the fork with rook h7, which honestly doesn't do anything because now I can basically trap his queen. So I check. He moves his king, and now knight f5. And if queen e8, I trap his queen with bishop f7, and if he tries this, I just take, obviously. And there are no other squares for his queen, so yeah. So the only way for him to not lose his queen is to play what he played, which is g6. With g6, I just take. Oh, sorry, I don't take. Yeah, I do take. Well, let's see. So I just take. He does rook g8, attacking my queen again, and So now he has the option of sort of saving his queen, because if I just move my queen back, he can move his queen there. But of course, I still win material. So I just I just took his queen, and once he took my queen, I took his rook, and the game's over here. The game's essentially over. I mean, I'm up a pawn and a rook for nothing. So yeah. Oh, whoops, my bad. Uh, the position just. I mean, he just keeps playing, and I just keep playing, and there's nothing much to look at here. Simple stuff, really. And he resigns. So yeah, that's the first game of my tournament. Uh, I went I went 4 out of 5. So I won my first 3 games and then drew my last two. Uh, yeah, winning second place. I mean, this game doesn't have much value to it, honestly, because it was against a Patzer. I'll be posting more games. I'll be posting the rest of my games shortly. So yeah, bye.